What is going on, everyone? Jackson here from Vendetta Sports Media, and we are so back. For the first time in a long time, the court is back in session. We are part of the Vendetta Sports Media podcasting network. So if you are watching us on YouTube, then please go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and like the video. It's free to do. It helps us out, helps us grow. And if you do subscribe, then go ahead and hit the notification bell so you can be notified whenever future episodes. And yes, there will be future episodes. They're not going to be, it's not going to be like a weekly thing right now, but it's going to be fairly regularly. I'd say it's a long NBA season, and I don't want this to be the podcast where we just talk about LeBron every week, because that's, I mean, just to kind of go off a quick tangent here. Well, first off, my guest today is Matt, the Diamond himself. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good.
Yeah, see,
It's weird that there's no basketball on today.
it's very weird. After waiting this whole time, we get a week of it, and then it's like,
man. I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm hanging in there. Got new kid. She's here, so now I've got two kids, and oh boy, it's a wild ride, indeed. But anyway,
What was the tangent you want to go on?
Okay, so the quick LeBron tangent. So first of all, before the season even started, it was an opening night, and already like the mainstream media I saw a bunch of taglines for videos, and it was like, is this a must-win game for the Lakers? Game 1 of 82 against the defending champs. Is this a must-win for the Lakers? And it's like, I'm not joking. When basketball gets here, it's like the brain cells of those in like the popular media, just they shrink and go down even more than what they already are, because they've already got some wild takes during football season, but throw in LeBron in the NBA and it's just like the brain cell that they all share just kind of sizzles, and it's like, like a piece of bacon when it's frying, it just shrinks down. That's kind of what it's like when LeBron plays. So there's that.
It's like the SpongeBob, it's like big brain, but then it immediately shrinks.
Yes. And then I guess the other LeBron tangent that's pretty relevant for today, LeBron's been crying all over Twitter, or X, whatever you call it these days, about the 2-minute report from their game against your Heat. This is what he had to say. This is his most recent tweet. This was like a little over an hour ago. Where
I actually didn't see this.
So it was a big account that follows the NBA. It's one of those accounts where if I share it in the Slack, Trey is like, Jackson, you need to follow better accounts, and I'm like, Trey, it's on my For You page. I can't help that it comes up, type of deal. It's just like stuff I'm interested in, and obviously I follow like 100 NBA players and accounts and whatever, and I follow all 30 teams. So obviously this is gonna get force fed down my throat, but. It says the NBA has confirmed that all the calls made in the last 2 minutes of the previous night's Lakers Heat game, that's just a weird way to phrase that to me, were correct with no missed calls. This is LeBron's response. He says the game isn't won or lost in the last 2 minutes. If you know the game, things happen throughout the first, second, third, and first 10 minutes of the fourth that has major impact on outcomes. So he's basically complaining. He thinks, the way that I've interpreted it as, is he's crapping on the refs for the entire game.
All right, let me get on my soapbox here for a second.
Let's go. Let's just walk into your Heat. We got a good show tonight. It's gonna be. We're aiming for an hour. There have been times where Matt and I have been on the podcast and we've gone for like a 2-hour show almost one time. But we're not gonna do that tonight. But go ahead, Matt. I'll step back.
It's just, so there was a report. I mean, it's off of like what you're talking about with like LeBron and the refs. Apparently they called into the league office complaining about a couple of calls that happened in the middle of the game that prevented like free throws the Lakers.
Yeah, and I did, to interject, I did see you going off on this on Twitter today. So
I mean, I could have actually gone in more. I didn't though. But apparently LeBron is towards the bottom of the league in free throw attempts or on drives or whatever. I don't remember what the exact stat was, but I think within like a certain amount of possessions, he's like 8th worst among like a bunch of qualifiers on drives. And it's just like, okay, cool, that's fine. The two calls that were referenced and I think it was Tim McMahon who wrote it for ESPN, the original report. It was a Duncan Robinson shove and transition in like the second quarter, and then it was a Thomas Bryant. He got him in the eye on a dunk attempt, and it was a no call. The Thomas Bryant one was a little bit. It was hard to tell in real time, but like there you could see on the replay that there was like some contact, but there it's like, okay, that's just a missed call. That stuff happens. Like how many times have we seen missed calls in basketball games happen for either side? Like that shit just happens. Yeah, I'm gonna be the one who's gonna be screaming if it's my team. If it's someone else's team, like I don't know, the Lakers, Clippers, Nugget, like every fan base is gonna complain about the refs in some capacity. It's nothing new. That's just how sports works. Okay. The refs can never win in that degree. But the Duncan Robinson one was like, what the hell are we doing here? It was a minor shove in the back in transition, but like it wasn't anything egregious. And it's like, I wish we could show the replay on here. We can't. You could probably go look it up. Follow my Twitter. I have it here linked on the thing, so you could check out. It was like,
look, I'll double it up there because it's still here. So
it was a nothing burger. Like it was just like, what if we're actually calling the league office about these two foul calls? Like there's no way that I've seen stuff that's 10 times worse, 15 times worse, 50 times worse in an NBA game that's not getting called. That's just what happens sometimes, whether we like it or not. But the fact that we're calling the league office for this stuff, like you're going to the league office with this, like, come on, man, like this, it's unnecessary.
This gives major like, so obviously
it's crazy. So, like, why are we calling the league office for this? Like, it's so. I don't like using the word soft, but it's so soft in the sense that, like, yeah, there has been times in LeBron's career where he's gotten like practically tackled and they don't call a foul. Like, that's fine. I get that.
Yeah.
But this isn't one of those cases, not even close to that.
Yeah.
No, what are we doing?
This definitely gives off the vibes of like little kids at the playground, and there's like one kid that like anything that happens to him is running off and tattling to the teacher. And it's like stuff that's not even that bad, or like stuff that's like even worth it. That's just like the kind of vibes that it gives off. And sure, like, yeah, that kid ran into you. So what? Get over it. You know, that type of thing. And I have to deal with kids like that on a daily basis. I go to a small school, or I teach at a small school. So, you know, I got to deal with elementary. I got to deal with high school. It's all a big deal. But and this is not like abnormal behavior from LeBron. I mean, the man had a meltdown in a regular season game. You would have thought that, like, I don't know, like someone just like murdered someone in his family. The way that he was reacting in that Celtics game to a missed foul call at the very end, and he's like, oh, you know, that one hurt and everything, that nature, you know, so passionate. No, dude, like, come on, man. It's not that deep.
Crazy.
It's okay. Like, and I agree with LeBron when he says that things happen throughout the first, second, third, and first 10 minutes of the fourth quarter. Yeah. Play better basketball.
Yeah.
Don't let your opponent hang in the game and then get it to the point where the refs make a call that doesn't go in your favor. A big criticism, if I can bring in football here real quick, with my Miami Dolphins, is that they kind of gotten screwed over, it feels like sometimes, with calls from refs, touchdowns getting called back, drives getting killed because of little ticky-tack penalties. And it's like, okay, you've got to play a better game than what the refs are going to play. Yeah. And even like, and
it's like the game against Philly.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, don't remind me. That was so bad. They played good despite that, but a few mistakes here and there. Obviously, they didn't win. But then it's like, even with like my Grizzlies, and we'll get to talking about them, is in their first game, the in-season tournament, which we can have some comments on that a little bit later too. The first in-season tournament game they played, the Trailblazers. The Trailblazers shot, it was either 36 or 38 free throws compared to Memphis's, I think it was 16 or 17. I don't have the stats in front of me, but it was still a fairly close game. It's just turnovers. It's mental lapses throughout the game and allowing whenever you would go on a run, taking your foot off the gas and letting wide open 3-point shooters. And again, don't worry, we're going to get all into this when we get to my rant on my Grizzlies, because that's going to be a marquee thing we're going to talk about today. You know what? Let's just kind of roll into that if you don't mind. Let's
Well,
just kind
I
of
also want to say,
go
I mean,
finish up with you. Yes.
to bound no, just to kind of to close off the LeBron Heat, whatever. The Duncan Robinson thing, they weren't even going to get, they weren't even in the bonus. It may have been a shooting foul, so he may have gotten a couple of free throws. The Thomas Bryant one, he would have gotten free throws if they called that.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'll give him that. Again, it was nothing incredibly egregious that you need to go to the league office about. But also, Miami didn't score in the final like 3:45 of the game, and so like the Lakers were down 9, and they had several chances to come back. They scored 8 points. I don't know if they scored on their final. They didn't score on their final like few possessions. And so like that, they had some empty possessions. It was felt like it was 108, 107 for ages. But Miami didn't score in like the final 4 minutes almost. And so that, again, you have your chances to some extent to delete that narrative of, oh, if I got a couple extra free throws here. I mean, shit, I'm sure Jimmy Butler, I could go back and watch. Jimmy Butler probably got hit across somewhere at some point and didn't get a call. Like, that's just like, and also Jimmy's just one of those guys who just doesn't really complain that much, which I respect about him. But there are like occasional times where he does. But like there's guys who get hit all the time and nothing's called. Like that's basketball, man.
And it also doesn't help that the NBA encourages this.
If this would be some shit that I would complain about. If it's something that I would complain about when I was a kid, I was an asshole when I was playing with refs, and I still kind of am when I do play, which hasn't been. It's been a little over a year, but like, if it's something that I'm complaining about, like, it shouldn't be. That shouldn't be the case with professional basketball players. So I'll call myself out on that too.
Yeah, but no, I said that the NBA encourages it when you have fits like what Draymond had the other night. It's just openly encouraging NBA players to act out and wild out and things of that nature. But anyway, all right, so enough of the LeBron talk. We've given him enough time. I opened the show saying that I didn't want to have every show talking about LeBron, and here we are having an opening like almost 10-minute discussion about LeBron. So now to move on, if you don't mind, Matt, I'll be using my executive privileges as the host of this show with my co-host R2 here to talk about the Memphis Grizzlies. They finally won.
Jackson, I just want to let you know that this is a safe space, and I'm here to listen for you.
All right,
I'm not here to listen for. I'm here to listen to you.
Yep.
So I'll just let you go, and I'll pick your brain.
All right. So I'm going to start out with some of the positives. They won a game. They are no longer the only winless team in the entire association. They are still last in the West right now.
They're 1-0 in their last one game.
They are 1-0. The season officially started November 5th, okay? Everything before that was just preseason, okay? It's the longest preseason I've ever gone through in NBA history, but it's okay because preseason's finally over. Now the season starts. I mean, the biggest problems with Memphis right now, first and foremost, is their role players that we were assuming were going to take a leap this season have taken a massive fall backwards, straight on their backs. Especially Jake LaRavia. Jake LaRavia actually today was designated to the G League. And he was getting heavy rotation minutes throughout the earlier parts of, again, a very young season, but against the Pelicans, Nuggets, Wizards, he was a key rotational player. And a reason why mostly is because, obviously, Memphis has had to deal with an outrageous amount of injuries. Anytime someone gets off the injured list, someone gets put back on it. Santi Aldama's back. He's on a bit of a minutes restriction right now, though. And it doesn't help now that Derrick Rose, who I wasn't expecting to be fully healthy all season anyway, is also on the injured list. Of course, Steven Adams out for the year, sucks incredibly. Ja has 19 games, I think, left on his suspension. So hopefully he's gearing up and getting ready. And I hope, by the way, this does kill the narrative that the Grizzlies are better without Ja. Because that was a thing that had been running wild for a long time and actually kind of got into Ja's head a little bit too. This happened, I think it was 2 years ago. He was out for a while, and it was, I mean, Memphis went on an incredible run. They only lost like I think maybe 2 or 3 games in like a 16, 17 game span that he missed. It was an incredible run, and they beat some really good teams. Like they beat a fully healthy it was a Nets team, which is like, first of all, like, whoa, kind of crazy, insane. And this is fully healthy Nets team with like KD and Kyrie and James Harden. They beat them, and it was an incredible win. But then Ja comes back, has a stinker, and they lose like 2 in a row. And then everyone on Twitter is like adding him like he sucks, and a lot of it's Grizz fans too. And it was wild that it was happening, and it kind of got him down a little bit, which, I would hope that he would just in that sense like delete Twitter, try not to take it personally, because everyone on Twitter, like, I hate the Twitter sports world. I really do. Sometimes I love it, but a lot of times I hate it because it's just whoever can have the most outrageous take and gets the clicks. That's all they care about. And you see that from someone like Stephen A. Smith, who has been parading around talking about how John Morant should be ashamed of the Memphis Grizzlies for what's happening right now, when you know very well that Stephen A. Smith has not watched a second of Memphis Grizzlies basketball this year. There has been no nationally televised Memphis game, so there is no way that Stephen A. Smith has watched that. He's too busy being in his soap operas to do anything. So let me bring it back to Memphis here a little bit. We got off in the weeds, so I'll bring it back here. Another encouraging thing is that even in the losses, the majority of those losses were within single digits. Games like Pelicans opening night, the Nuggets game was very close. Memphis maybe even should have won that game. The Nuggets didn't play. Denver didn't play very well that game. The Trailblazers loss in OT, that one hurt. They got blown out by the Jazz. The Mavericks played incredibly well, and then they lost to the lowly Wizards also, and that has been the season so far for Memphis. But I think with a lot of those close games, like I think if Ja is back, if Ja was here, I think they've only lost 2, maybe 3 games at the most right now, which again, still a very young season. But a lot of it has to do with the fact that, again, I kind of mentioned it a minute ago. It's mental lapses, it's turnovers, and it's stupid turnovers that are happening. And they've been losing the rebound battle. They won it a couple times. Jaren's done a great job at becoming a rebounder now. He's been doing a much better job than he did in FIBA, that's for sure. And then Bismack Biyombo, man, came in and actually made a difference in the rebounding battle and on the defensive end in that second Trailblazers game. So that's pretty good. And he was on the floor with the unit that went on I think it was either a 26, I think it was a 26-2 or 28-2 run to close out the game in the final 4 minutes for Memphis to come back and win it. Absolutely wild. And there's been hopefully a lot of good growing pains to come from this, especially from Desmond Bane. Bane right now is averaging almost 27 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists on almost 60% true shooting. That is all-star, borderline all-NBA numbers from Bane. And he's the number one option right now. With Ja out, he's the number one option. There's no real playmaker on this team right now. Smart's been kind of hit or miss with the playmaking, which he kind of was like that in Boston. I wasn't expecting him. I was hoping, but I wasn't expecting him to be like, getting 7, 8 assists a game. I don't even think Ja gets up into that range, hardly. But he's playing phenomenally. There's not, I don't want to say little to no ball movement because that's a lie, but just the way that Memphis's offense operates, it's a lot of high pick and rolls and kickouts and things of that nature. And Bane is he's getting downhill, he's finishing at the rim, he's getting some easy looks on some backdoor cuts. He's hitting the mid-range pull-up middies, which is a great aspect of his game that I've really enjoyed seeing him make. I'm trying to find. Here we go. His 3-point percentage right now, he's shooting around 36%, which is fairly good. It's not as high as it has been, but for being the number one option, he's playing phenomenally right now. And so he is seeing the best of what opposing defenses have to throw at him, and he is succeeding. And so is Jaren. Jaren is having a great season so far as well. Almost 22 points a game, almost 8 rebounds a game, 7.6 rebounds a game. That's wild. I never thought I would see the day when Jaren Jackson Jr. was like a +5 a game rebounder. He's almost
He kind of has to.
I mean, yeah, he kind of has to. You're right. But, and then of course, the blocks are still there. 2.3 blocks a game, almost 61% true shooting percentage. And he's also shooting 41% from three so far. Well, that was for October. November, he's 35%. So average it out, it's a little under 40%. So it just blocked him off for whatever reason. Anyway, what's unfortunate with this team is, again, it's the turnovers. And then there is something also that everyone has been screaming from the top of their lungs. We don't know why Memphis does it. We don't know why Taylor Jenkins has this a part of the defensive scheme. But the defensive scheme going into every game seems to be protect the paint at all costs. And I respect that, except when protecting the paint at all costs leads to overhelping and leaving wide open shooters. And I don't care if the person on the wing or in the corner is a career 30% 3-point shooter. He is in the NBA. Get him in a gym. He is going to make 50, 60, 100 threes in a row probably. We see it all the time of role players, videos, hitting threes. Ben Simmons can hit 10 threes in a row, wide open, in the gym. It's just in a game. You got to get him to shoot it. But, and I feel like every time I go into Grizzly spaces and I talk in there, one of the talking points I always have is that it feels like every single night, a single player or an entire team is having an historic night against Memphis, shooting.
I could relate to that so much with my team on some nights, and at least in like past years. There's Heat fans on Twitter who they call it the random scrub Heat killers, RSHK, yes. And like there's such a long list of them.
Oh, dude, it's like freaking.
Sorry for interrupting.
Jeremy Grant, Corey Kispert, within the Washington game. There are certified Grizz killers around. Like Patty Mills was that for the longest time. That's what we call them. We call them certified Grizz killers, and we hate them with a passion because they are random role players, 8th, 9-man on the roster, and they play like prime Kobe whenever they play against the Grizzlies, and it's just ridiculous. But again, it doesn't help. Opposing teams are shooting over 40% against Memphis. They are shooting incredibly well. And it shouldn't be the case when you have a defensive player of the year on your team that's a guard. That is a perimeter defensive player. That should not be happening.
Well, it also doesn't help that, like, without Steven Adams, like you mentioned, the aggressiveness, it feels like when you go smaller, you're a little bit more switchable. And so you could flatten a team out instead of like having to blitz or having to hard hedge or whatever, and having your back line be compromised to some extent to where you're having smaller guys, like, I'm just throwing names out there, but like a Luke Kennard defending the rim. Or like sometimes maybe like a David Roddy defending the rim. Like when you're like Memphis is a team when if you take Steven Adams out of the equation, not to say Steven Adams is a bad defender because he absolutely is not, but they're a little bit more switchable, and you could like you still have some personnel problems with like, do you want Marcus Smart guarding fours,
Yeah.
or do you want Jaren Jackson Jr. always on the perimeter in space where guess what, if a shot goes up, well, there's small guys there's smaller guys under the rim, so it's harder to rebound. Like you'd have to make sacrifices there, and there'd be some tug and pull with that.
Yeah, but it's just the rotations are not great. It's one guy that's slightly open and two guys gravitate towards him when he drives to the basket, and that's going to leave a guy, I'm not joking, wide open. Jeremy Grant was killing the Grizzlies in in both games, really, and Malcolm Brogdon too. Malcolm Brogdon was absolutely annihilating Memphis from three throughout both of those games, and it is overhelping. It's constant overhelping, and you know it's bad when one of the commentators, Brevin Knight, for the Grizzlies, for 3 years has been bringing this up in games about not understanding why Memphis is overhelping on drives. Like, yes, someone like Jaren, hover around the paint, stay around there. That's your domain. Obviously, he's not going to come out because more than likely he's going to be on a dude that's not going to really stretch the floor. Or, you know, if he hits like 5 threes, then yeah, that's a career night from that dude. But it's all the guards too. They all step in and they overhelp, they overextend themselves, they close out way too hard on the perimeter, and they get behind on the ball movement. And just these are NBA players, so they just swing the ball around, one dribble drive, kick out, guys wide open for three, shooting over 40%.
You just have to hope that there's some sort of like progression with that, or like there's some sort of variance.
The Mavericks were shooting. It was like almost at halftime. It was like at halftime they were shooting almost 60% from three. They were already in double-digit threes made by halftime, and that's the big killer for Memphis. It really is, and it's almost like they rely on guys having bad nights and for our guys to be on. And it simply was not the case. Our guys were not on for the majority of the season. Now, Luke Kennard is looking a lot better than when he started. There is, I forget his name, but he's the shooting coach for Memphis. He is treated like a terrorist by the fans. They want him gone because he breaks every shooter that comes to Memphis. Their shot gets broken after one season in Memphis, and then they go somewhere else with another training staff and another shooting coach, and they start shooting fine. Like Dylan Brooks is leading the league in 3-point percentage right now. He's playing phenomenally.
He's been good.
He has, which we've seen. He's done this in the past. He did this last year. He had a hot start. So call me at game like 60. We'll see where Dylan Brooks is at 60. If Dylan Brooks is still playing like this and it's game 60, then yes, we need to have a march on the forum in Memphis and demand that some of that coaching staff be fired, especially the training staff and the medical staff, because everyone seems to be hurt always, and they're never open about it, and they're always out for extended periods of time with zero word as to what is happening. And we're like, just tell us, bro. We're not going to be mad. We're getting more angry when it's like, oh, left ankle soreness for Santi Aldama, and he misses 2.5 weeks or something like that. Or it's Steven Adams, and they're like, oh, you know, he's day to day, he's week to week, he's having season-ending knee surgery. Like, like that's where we got to from. All the reports indicated that Steven Adams was going to be ready to go for the season, and then the bombshell drops one day. He's like, oh, he's having season-ending knee surgery. Yeah, he's done. So, but I guess I'm kind of done with the rant. We just got to survive 19 more games. Just try to get a couple of wins. There's some decent teams that are coming up that Memphis can get some wins out of. It's possible to climb close to 500, and that's about the best thing that we can hope for right now. And then when Ja gets back, hopefully everyone kind of falls in line fairly quickly, and it's possible that they can go on some sort of run. And I still kind of want to see Memphis to make a trade. They have pretty deep wing depth, and there's going to be some sellers at the deadline. You're going to have teams that have players that are playing really well, and especially with how valuable first round picks are now, because of the whole tax apron stuff and limiting when you can trade players. Um, but hope yeah, I'm hopeful. I'm not too phased right now. I'm just happy they have a win. If we were 0-7, I'd still be okay-ish, but this would be more of an angrier rant than what it is.
It's fair. That's fair.
All right, so I guess that's enough Memphis talk. I've rambled on for quite some time there. Um, but so we'll transition over to your team a little bit, Matt. I know it's been kind of a slow start
A little bit
for
rocky.
Little Rocky, yeah, for both of our
A little rocky.
teams. Uh, which I mean, I guess for you, a bit higher expectations just because you've had two finals appearances in what 3-4 years.
2-4, yeah.
Yeah, 2-4. So like obviously yeah. So it's not the most ideal spot, but I think we're both. If I can just say, I think both of our teams are in okay positions just from the fact that it's still so early.
Yeah.
It's a very long season,
Yeah.
and got some hoopers. Tyler Hero looks like the real deal to start out the season. Of course, you've got Himmy Butler. I like a lot of the players on Miami's roster, but just as a fan, I want your reactions to this first week of the season for your Heat.
Well, I don't know if I've actually said this on here before, if I said this on the then like on like the Daily Show or whatnot, but Miami historically is a pretty slow starting team. At least that's typically how it's been under Spoelstra. I know 2 years ago in 2022 they got off to like a crazy fast start, and that was like one of the more fun starts that I can remember. But usually it's like there's a pretty slow start. Like there was a year in 2017, I believe, where it was they started 10-31, but then finished 31-10. Um, so like this is kind of like a slow starting bunch, but it's been a little bit of a rocky 7 games. I mean, they're 3-4 right now. They've beaten Detroit, who they almost lost to because they had a 19-point lead in the fourth quarter. They choked it away. They only won by 1. Detroit also, who looks like a pretty fun team, by the way. They beat Washington in the inaugural in-season tournament game on their very dastardly red court, and then they beat Los Angeles last night, the Lakers, by 1 after having a 9-point lead with 4 minutes left and nearly choking that away. This has been the worst fourth quarter team in the league. I think they're minus. I remember looking at the stat earlier today, but they're like a minus, I think, 34 in fourth quarters this year, which is, I think, the worst in the league, or at least if it's not worst in the league, it's close to being the worst in the league.
Gosh, that is pretty crazy.
They have a negative. I think it was like a 25.2 net rating in the fourth quarter. Like if you prorate that over 100 possessions, it's been bad. Just like lackluster decision making. Sometimes they just vomit on themselves with their pace. The thing that it feels like it's sometimes my turn, your turn ball when it comes to the fourth quarter. Sometimes they just look at Jimmy and they're like, Jimmy, do something. Well, there's 4 guys standing around not really doing anything else. Or it's Tyler. They're being like, hey, Tyler, do something. And it's just 4 guys standing again, not really much movement, play movement or ball movement. So that's frustrating. That sometimes bleeds into their defense, which, again, once a team finds steam late in the game, it's kind of hard to stop, especially if you on the offensive end aren't finding steam yourselves. And so that's been a little bit tough. That's something that I think should regress over, or at least progress back to the mean over time. Because, I mean, this team played 54 clutch games last year. I don't remember how many exactly they've played so far this year, but I think
what's up. What's up with you being fans of teams that win in the clutch?
I don't
The Heat,
know.
the
I don't
Vikings.
know.
Like,
I don't know.
why put yourself through this? You're gonna have a heart attack when you're like 40.
I'm just numb to it at this point, really. Like I'm not really. I'm just like, oh, okay, it's a 3-point game with 2.5 minutes.
Oh man.
But the thing, they're I think 5th worst in offense. They're 14th in defense, and so They're shooting the ball much better this year. I think they're top 10 in 3-point percentage at around like 37.5, 38%. You've seen better shooting seasons from Tyler. You've seen a much, much better, just at least looking season shooting wise from Duncan, which is so very nice to see just because of like, he's a guy who's been very open about his mental health struggles and a guy who who gets in his own head when he's missing shots. And we've seen from him this year that like we've seen him add on to it every year, but he's like legitimately good at like attacking long closeouts and like taking dudes off the dribble in certain spots. If they try to run him off the 3-point line, or sometimes he would just take him off the dribble just out of like hesitation, and always catches the defense off guard. He's good finishing around the rim. He's shot in some pull-ups from like the free throw line extended area, which makes me laugh because that's not something that I would have thought would have been possible from him 3-4 years ago when he was first in the league and just shooting 40+% from deep. But he's a very good cutter. We've seen a lot of good from Duncan this season, at least on the offensive side of the ball. Tyler's been remarkable just in terms of like he's averaging 25 a game, 5.5 rebounds, 5 assists, shooting 41% from deep. He's taking kind of the offense by the balls because Jimmy's gotten off to a little bit of a slow start. He doesn't look completely engaged. Sometimes that's just the regular season Jimmy experience. That's nothing new. Bam's been good. Last night he had 22, 20, and 10 assists. The first Miami Heat 20-20-10 triple-double ever, with 2 steals, with 2 blocks. There was a stat that came out today that opposing guards are shooting like less than 35% when defended by him, and guys are shooting 12% on isolations against him. Like, so he's been just phenomenal. I mean, like, it's nothing new with him, but he's been just remarkable defensively. And so that's been a great sign. He's still averaging. He got off to a little bit of a slower rebounding start, but he's still averaging 22 and almost 10 rebounds a game. So, but like the thing that bothers me with this team, like Kyle at some points has bothered me, and that's again like Heat fans do not like Kyle Lowry at all. Really at this stage of his career, his point of attack defense is awful. He doesn't fit well with Kevin Love, who started the season in the starting lineup. They've just taken him out of the rotation the last couple of games. He's getting DNPs. This team has been a little bit banged up in the front court. Like Haywood Highsmith missed time. He's now back. Caleb Martin's played 1 game. He has knee tendinosis. So that's something that's chronic, and that's something that could hinder how well he plays this season. He's making this 4-game road trip. Like he made the trip. And so that's an encouraging sign, I guess. I don't think he's going to return from it at all. I mean, like Jamal Cain's missed time, Nikola Jovic's missed time, both due to DNPs, but also both due to injuries at certain points. But like, yeah, it's been a little bit of a rocky start just on both ends of the ball. This team is too stagnant sometimes, which is incredibly frustrating with me. Again, that kind of lends into like the fourth quarter problems, where it's like they don't have enough rim pressurers and guys who can create their own shot to just have 1 action or 2 actions, and then if those falter out, then all of a sudden create their own shot with whatever time they have left on the shot clock. Like they just don't have the personnel for that, and that has been a problem with them for the last 2, 3, 4 years. That really hasn't been anything new. And so that's obviously a little tough when the offense bogs down when you're not starting. What do you do? And so that's been a little bit of a problem with this team, but I think in overall, I can't complain too much just based on the last 2 games. Jaime Jaquez I didn't even mention him. Jaime Jaquez looks awesome. Like, he's not filling up the box score. He's shooting the ball pretty poorly. His role offensively has kind of changed a little bit throughout the season. Like, there was a game against Brooklyn a few games ago where he started in place of Jimmy. Or no, was it in place of Jimmy? I can't remember who was in place of, but he started. No, actually, he might have started at the 4. But anyway, he was off the ball a lot more, but he was spotting up from beyond the arc. and that's just not his game right now. And he started like 0 of 6 from downtown, 0 of 7. And it was just like, oh my goodness. Like, and it all came pretty quick in the game too. It wasn't like it was over a span of time. Like he had like 4 or 5 3-point attempts in like the first like 6 minutes. And it was just like, this is not exactly what you want from him offensively. Like he's a guy who you want moving off the ball a little bit more, but he's a guy who can also just create. He's a guy who can create for himself to some extent. But I think the most impressive part about Jaime Jaquez, which I've talked about this on Twitter, I've talked about this in plenty of other spaces before, but his defense. And like this guy was an all Pac-12 defender, but the fact that he's been defending like Jason Tatum, like when they played Boston second game of the season, he defended Jason Tatum at a relatively high level, all things considered. He defended Anthony Edwards fairly well when they played Minnesota in the third game of the season. He's defended Mikal Bridges when they played against Brooklyn. He defended Giannis somewhat well. He defended Dame somewhat well. Like he's defending all of these high level guys well. He defended LeBron well in a few possessions last night. Like this is a guy like you put him in space. Yeah, he was coming into the NBA as known as like a team defender and a guy who's a good. There was a little bit of question with just his quickness laterally, but he's shown that he has good hands. He's well balanced on the defensive end of the floor. Like he's sturdy, and so he can absorb contact pretty well. He doesn't get pushed off his spot. Like he's a guy who can just hold his own. And like when you're seeing that from a rookie, albeit a 22-year-old rookie, it's still a very, very, very good sign because when you're flanked by Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, it makes their jobs a little bit easier. And Josh Richardson, who has had a little bit of a shaky start, but he's still a very good defender. And so like when you're flanked by these guys, in addition to Haywood, in addition to Caleb, who was only played one game, but when he comes back, he's a good defender. Like you have some really good wing defenders, and this is the most kind of two-way wing defenders that Miami's had in quite some time. And it just makes them a little bit deeper than they have been in years past to some extent. But I guess that's just I'm ending on a good note with that. But a little bit of a rocky start. Funny enough, Miami does play Memphis tomorrow.
Yep.
Miami does also play 9 of their next 10 on the road, which is always cool.
Yeah.
But
Jeez.
yeah,
crazy.
they started like 12 of their first, I think like 17 or 18 on the road. It's just like why? Wow. And I have heard that, and I'm saying this, I had not from actual sources, but people with sources from the organization that like there has been times where Spo does like the long road trips at the beginning of the season because it helps the team bond and helps them develop that camaraderie. But if they start losing games, that's obviously not a good sign. Not that they're going to lose games, but
yeah,
you really don't know until it happens.
Yeah, and I guess the other side of that is that towards the end of the season, you'll have a lot of home games, and maybe that can help when it comes to fighting for seeding.
Yeah,
you know. But very rocky starts, like you said. It's going to be a continuation of a rocky start for either one of our teams. Recording this on the 7th, and there's no games tonight, but tomorrow, November the 8th, both of our teams square off in an Eastern-Western Conference showdown of two mighty teams that, well, I mean, your team is still hanging in there. My team is absolutely trash right now.
Well,
but
I mean,
there's hope. There's hope. I'm not
a few games. What the hell's like? Jesus, what's happening? And then nothing like the Washington Wizards to cure a little bit of bad struggles. I mean, Miami only did beat them by 7, but it was much closer than what the game indicated. Let me just put it that way.
Well, listen,
that's how it was. They made a little bit of a comeback at the end. Miami was up by like 25 at one point.
It took us 2 tries to beat the Anthony Simons-less and Scoot Henderson-less Blazers. 2 tries. And we did it. We are now 0-1 in the in-season tournament, though. So our in-season tournament hopes are not looking good. Not off to a good start.
By the way, what do you think about the in-season tournament? So, like, what are your, I guess, before we move on to our next segment, like, what are your initial impressions so far? Just like games played, jerseys, courts, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's no bit like I've never hated the idea of it. It's just I was always curious how they would implement it and how it wouldn't affect the regular season, and just using it as a regular season game is fine with me because it's not like, if you for anyone that watches like the Premier League, they have like two or three different cups that they'll play for. Outside of then, like, you have like the Champions League and the Euro League or whatever it's called, or whatever, like the but anyway, I'm having a brain fart.
Champions League.
Yeah. Well, it's like there's like two of them. There's like Champions League, and then there's like the one if you don't qualify for the Champions League, but you're still like a really good team, then you still get invited to it.
Oh,
It's like the
I
Europa League. I can't remember. It's been a hot minute since I've played FIFA, so I can't remember. And I only watch a little bit of Premier League when I get the chance to. But those are like extra games that outside of the regular seasons that those teams play. So it's like they play on Saturdays, but then sometimes they'll randomly have like a Tuesday and a Thursday game in the week, depending on it. And then it's like they have to reschedule some games later on, and so they'll have like 3 games within a week. So I'm happy it's not anything like that. The courts are wild. It feels like, because like some of them, they don't even like match the design of like some of the like the color combinations of some of the teams. Like I think the most egregious
Yeah.
one, I think it's New Orleans, has like a neon green court, or like the stripe that goes through the center is neon green. I can't remember. Someone had a really egregious one. And then it's like the Nuggets. It looks more like a Warriors court. They all look like like the My Team created courts from 2K. That's the vibes
Yeah.
that I get. Some of them are
Yeah.
okay. Some of them are atrocious eyesores.
Yeah.
And it was hard to watch some of those games that night because the lights bright bouncing
Yeah.
off those colors.
Miami's was a little tough at first. Like I can't.
Yeah,
It
and I
was
know,
just
they were.
very big red, and it's just like, I mean, they have the black. They debuted their black heat culture jerseys, which people have made fun of. Their city edition unis, but they debuted them that night, and so it's like that combination with the black jerseys with the red court, like that's not bad, but the red court, it was still like very noisy,
Yeah,
very very noisy.
and I know people were kind of clowning them because isn't it near the baseline? It's got like, like heat culture. It's like the hardest working. Like
Oh yeah, that's not
all
on their
this.
red court though. That's just on their city edition court.
Okay,
But
their
yeah,
city edition core.
it's
Okay,
not on their red court.
I know.
Jesus.
Okay, yeah. So that's what they were getting clowned for. They
Yeah,
released that, and everyone's like, that is the corniest thing I've ever seen.
it's a
NBA.
Pat Riley saying. He's been saying
Yeah,
it since longer than I've been alive.
yeah.
Like what?
I know, but so I know. I know you've got the overreaction piece. I think it should be coming out soon. I didn't see it today. Is it
No,
out?
yeah, it's out.
Is it okay?
Yeah,
Oh well, then the website.
because of this.
The website. Oh right, the website's been kind of. Anyway, well, I'll have a link to
But
that.
yeah,
I'll have a link to that down in the description and everything. Of course, again, go follow Matt on Twitter, X, whatever. I still call it Twitter. I think 99% of people in the world still call it Twitter.
I still,
In fact, if you go to the App Store, the description for X is X parentheses formerly Twitter, so that way everyone knows that it's Twitter.
yeah.
I still don't understand the rebranding aspect of it, but anyway, I don't have billions of dollars to just throw around and goof off with. I wish I did, because then I'd buy an NBA team and we would all just be happy. But no, can't be happy. But this kind of goes along with your overreaction. Essentially, I want us to talk about. Essentially, I asked Matt, and I'm going to do it too. We're going to talk about one team that we're kind of surprised with in a positive way, and then a team we're surprised with in a negative way. So we'll start with the positives. I'm a big believer in starting with the good news first. Hype everyone up. So, or you might be a bad news first person, so the good news kind of soften, like, picks you back up. Maybe the good news first softens the blow, whichever way you like it. But we'll start with some good, and I'll let you lead off with this, Matt. So, what is a team right now in the NBA that has surprised you in a positive way?
There's a couple different ways that I want to go here because there's been a lot more surprisingly good teams
Hmm.
than there have been bad teams
I
from my
agree.
perspective.
I agree.
Uh, but I'm gonna go with the Philadelphia 76ers.
Okay.
Um, And I say that because there was a lot of question, like with James Harden not there before the season and not practicing and not playing, obviously. We know what happened over the offseason with him and Daryl Morey. We're not going to rehash that. I wondered how Tyrese Maxey would come into his own as kind of like a lead ball handler offensively. He's been,
Phenomenal.
I think,
Yes.
phenomenal is like understating how
Yeah.
good he's been. But he's been outstanding. They've gotten really good contributions from Tobias Harris, who I think us as an NBA community collectively just kind of like we just kind of like push him to the side sometimes. Like we don't really like give him enough credit. And like he's just a functional like player. He may not be the guy who you want as like obviously your first or second option on a team, but like if he's your third or fourth option, he's just like a guy who sometimes you don't notice, but in a good way because he's not like doing anything completely egregious. Um, he's still averaging, I think, like 19 and a half, 20 per game. Like he's gotten off to a good start efficiency wise. He's not like a terribly bad defender by any means. Like he'll hold his own for the most part. Um, Kelly Oubre Jr. He's averaging like 18 or 19 a
Yeah.
game. He's been awesome. He's
Yep.
got off to like a really, really, really hot shooting start. I think that's came back down to earth a little bit. And then obviously Joel Embiid, he's if the season ended today, he would be leading the league in scoring for his third consecutive season, averaging like 32 and a half per game. He had like 48 last night, something like that. He's been really good. And I for the most part, like I have been a Nick Nurse truther. Like I was really I defended him a lot, especially in those last couple of years in
Mm-hmm.
Toronto. But there was still a little bit of question, like how would he kind of translate this hyper aggressive defense, this I'm going to play you 40 minutes a night type rotation over to Philly. But like he's done a really good job so far. Philly's I think they're the number one offensive team in the league as of today. Or at least they're close
Yeah.
to it with Boston there. And then they're second in net rating. They've been like a good defensive team as well. Like this has been just overall like a good and functional team. And I also picked them because I did bet their under before the season at 49 and a half. Without betting because we'd be here for hours just
Yeah.
talking bad shit. But I would say definitely Philly's one of the teams that has stood out to me in a positive way among a few others. But how about you?
Yeah. Kind of similar thinking because I was pretty low on this team. I had a lot of questions about them coming into the season. Didn't know how they were essentially going to function, and they've been benefiting from being on the positive end of some close games to start out the year, which is might be a red flag, but oh, if you win, you win, and if you keep winning, you keep winning. That's just how it is sometimes. But the Dallas Mavericks right now, sitting at number 2 in the Western Conference. Luka Doncic is putting up 2K numbers right now. Now that's something that he normally does, but then it's like he's been sustaining it through all 7 of their early games so far. Kyrie's played decent. He's played pretty good so far. It's not the Kyrie that we're used to seeing. He's also missed a couple of games to start out with. But Grant Williams has been excellent for them so far, especially as a 3-point shooter. And that's the thing when you've got Luka Doncic, when you've got him as your primary ball handler, he loves. I mean, obviously he's going to take a couple step backs and everything like that nature, but it's good to surround him with good, solid shooters. Tim Hardaway Jr. was really the only wing shooter that they had. They've had Seth Curry in the past. He's back on the team now. He's not really had too much of an impact. What's crazy, Dante Exum in 2023 is on an NBA roster and is played in 6 of the 7 games that they've played. He's only getting a handful of minutes, but he's getting minutes, which is crazy um, to think. But really going out and getting Grant Williams, I think paid has paid volumes for this team as a 3-and-D wing defender. And then of course Josh Green has actually looked fairly good also. I think he I know ever like that
He's the
was
guy on my
yeah, well, I know there's a lot of people that were not happy with that pick, but he's coming into his own. Now I think, and then of course, Derek Lively has done a pretty good job as well, holding it down at the center spot. But I think obviously this team goes as far as what, not just if Luca can keep it up, but it's if the role players can continue to sustain their level of play. Can Grant Williams continue? He's a 15-point per game scorer right now. Can he stay at that level? Can Tim Hardaway Jr. Tim Hardaway Jr. is averaging almost 20 points right now. Can he
Mhm.
stay at that level? Because Tim Hardaway Jr. has always been very streaky. I've always felt that way, and it's
Yeah,
always felt
yes.
whenever watching the Mavericks when they get into the playoffs, they win games. It's because Tim Hardaway Jr. gets you 5 quick threes, or they lose games because he's gone ice cold from three. And Luca's gonna be Luca. He's gonna average near a triple double. He's gonna be putting over 30 points a game. But right now the role players are playing phenomenally, and again, a big red flag is the small. The point differential, they're +6 right now in point differential. That's fairly close. That's a couple plays going your way, one way or the other, seem to be going in favor in Dallas. Some might see it as a red flag. I think of it as they have some early season struggles, and they're still winning those games. They could be like Memphis, where they've had close games and they've been on the losing end of close games because of mental lapses that have been plaguing them to start the season, as I already went through in like my 20-minute monologue, my TED talk about the Grizzlies earlier. But no, I've been fairly impressed. I think their defense could still stand to improve. Um, but again, that's where Grant Williams comes in, and I think he's done a really good job so far to start the season.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm with you there. I'm with you.
all right, so now the negatives, and give me your team that has surprised you, but again, negative. Which there hasn't been too many, like you said. There's been more positive than negative, but I want to hear. Let's talk some negativity. Let's crap on some teams.
I mean, I had a when we before we got on, I had some trouble like
Yeah,
trying to figure out like who am I like actually disappointed in relative to like who's actually bad. And I didn't want to choose your Grizzlies because that's kind of like the
it's
cop out
it's the
obvious.
easy.
So,
It is extremely low hanging fruit.
yeah, very low hanging fruit. But the team I'm gonna go with, I mean, part of this is due to injury, but part of this is just like this is more recency bias than anything. But I'm gonna go with the Sacramento Kings.
That was one I was thinking of too. Yeah,
Um, De'Aaron's only played half the season, and so like if I'm gonna contextualize all of it, when you're without your best by far, not your by far your best player, but like your best player, your 25, 26-year-old lead guard who was so impactful,
mm-hmm.
especially in fourth quarters to you getting the third seed and winning however many like what like 48 games
Yeah,
last year. Him missing half the season already sucks. But they got completely trucked by Houston on two straight games. They lost by 25. I think it was last night, and then they lost by almost 20 on over the weekend to Houston. They lost two close games to the Warriors, which is always tough. I mean, it feels like whenever they play the Warriors, it's just like it's almost like the Hunger Games. Um, the first one was Steph being Steph. They pull away late, and then the second one being in San Francisco, it was the Klay Thompson game winner before uh, the game before the buzzer expired. I mean, they beat Utah by 16. They beat the Lakers by 5 in overtime, but this team just, especially these last couple of games without De'Aaron, like it's been very, very disappointing from both offensively and defensively. Like it feels like they just can't create their own shot, and they can't really make any shots. Kevin Herter's got off to an incredibly slow start shooting the ball. Keegan Murray's gotten off to a slow start shooting the ball. Like they've had guys who have been in shooting slumps, but then when you compound that with the fact that your best player again hasn't played for half a season, it's tough. But that's more nitpicky. Like
yeah,
I don't want to step on your toes with who you were gonna pick because I don't know who you were gonna
yeah.
pick.
I mean, the Kings are really, I mean, kind of like the answer here. Because I did struggle with it too because I came up with
Yeah,
that question. I'm like, this is like a good podcasty thing to talk about, and
yeah,
then I get into actually doing the research, and I'm like, oh crap, there's like, it's kind of the opposite. I'm like you. I was like, there's maybe 10 teams that we could have brought up for the positive surprise, and there's a lot going on
yeah,
right now. Now whether or not that stays, a month from now, when we get kind of in the middle of December,
right,
that's to remain. Things will probably even out a bit more, um,
yeah.
but
Like I don't think the Kings are going to be like I did have them outside of the top six,
yeah.
because I think there was going to be some injury regression, and like I don't want that to ever happen.
Yeah,
But they were an incredibly healthy team, and they won. They were a remarkable team in the clutch last year, and it's like that's just going to regress over time. So,
yeah. I
but
guess just
yeah,
like, I mean, I wasn't expecting them to be good anyway, but it's just kind of looking at these other teams. I didn't have them making the playoffs anyway, but it's just like the Bulls, man. They're so bad.
yeah,
The Chicago Bulls are so bad
I thought about them too.
for all the money that they have wrapped up in that roster. They should not be as bad as they are. Especially, they have what, like 2, 3 players that were in like the top 50 for the ESPN 100 rankings. I at least think DeMar and Levine were
Yeah,
top 50. They're like each in the 30s, and it's weird. If I don't know if you've paid attention too much, but they're always ranked like right back to back, like
no, I
like
haven't.
like one will be 38 and the other will be 37, or like 28, 29, something crazy like that. Um, but across the board, they've been disappointing. Levine career lows, and everyone's pretty much averaging career lows at this point. And then, of course, Patrick Williams, the man that's wanting like $100 million extension, is playing absolutely horrible right now.
Yeah,
He's playing
that's
like a guy that deserves like you know to go play at the with the Guangdong Tigers or something like that.
he's going to be a guy who's probably going to get like mid-level money or like
Yeah,
somewhere around that his
if
next contract, and
if
he's
that.
going to be very disappointed because he does want 20 to 25 million. It's just like you're not in the right one, you're not in the right place, and two, you're not, whether it's role, whatever it is, you're just not playing well. Whether it's skill set, I don't know, but
Yeah, and
he feels like a guy who needs a change of scenery.
it's just up and down. There's a lot of dudes on this roster that need a change of scenery. I think there's guys that are deeper on this roster that are buried. Like I'm a big Ayu
Yeah, Desuma.
Desumu. Yeah, I like Desumu. I think he's a hooper, but he's just kind of buried on this roster right now for whatever reason behind Kobe White.
He
And
re-signed as a restricted free agent. Like that's the thing where it's
yeah,
like very late in free agency after there was speculation that he could be going elsewhere.
yeah,
I mean, yeah, he did get like a not a terrible sized bag, but like the fact that he resigned like shocked the hell out of me. If I'm
yeah.
being completely honest, again, they had
And
rights to first.
they got Javon Carter on the roster now too. Shout out Javon
Yeah,
Carter.
yeah,
Um, but it's just I look up and down this roster. It's not good roster construction. Guys are not playing the way that they should be, and I didn't have them in the playoffs to begin with, but they've got to blow it up. They've got to do something, and it's like they're not going to get good value for what they have, but you got to get something and just start the tank now.
when you
you
have a players only meeting after the first
first
game of
game.
the season,
Yes, yes.
that's tough.
The Grizzlies went 0-6, no team meetings recorded.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
you lose the opening game, and you're like, guys, this is getting out of hand. Is
yeah.
this a
That's tough.
must-win for the Lakers
That's never
opening
a good
night?
sign. So
No,
yeah,
it is not good. But we'll move into our final segment. Here we're pushing kind of close to the hour mark. If you've stayed with us this whole time, we greatly appreciate you guys. We're in the home stretch, the 2-minute warning now here for the podcast. So obviously we are not an NBA podcast if we do not talk about the alien Victor Wembanyama and his gracing the NBA. And oh boy, has it been an eventful first week for Wembanyama, going toe to toe with KD. Some beautiful looking screen caps. Obviously I'm wearing a shirt right now that says history nerd, and I'm a history teacher. So just the fact of like, like some of the shots that we've seen, they're gonna be ingrained in the annals of NBA history if Wembenyama's career goes the way that we think it is. A lot of people seeing the Phoenix and San Antonio games as almost like a passing of the torch moment from like elite lanky scorers from between KD to Wembenyama.
It's the first time I put that connection together.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, when you're on Twitter at 1 a.m., you see some weird NBA takes.
Yeah,
It's
that's fair.
some weird stuff. Don't go on Brazil Twitter. Do not go on Brazil NBA
No,
Twitter. Do not.
I am terrified for the day that like if Minnesota like makes it to the Western
Yes.
Conference Finals or makes it to the NBA Finals, I am petrified.
God forbid they win.
I might have to block that account like right after we get off.
Oh.
No.
No.
No. Not doing that.
No, because they have a 4-2 start and already wilding right now. But
they're eating every single thing that they come
and
that they beat. Terrifying.
No, like the last video after when it was like a furry or something. It was like
yeah,
it's like where are they getting these videos? And then are they making the videos? Like someone's going out of their way and spending their free time creating that.
Who's responsible for these accounts? Like that's what I like. Who's like, hey, dude, who's this 20-year-old intern who is like, yo, dude, like, do I really have to post this in the like? Yes, after every single win, you have to post like,
and a wolf overtly sexually eating another animal.
It's not something you want to see. I mean, it almost makes me like I want to root for the Timberwolves, especially after what happened last year. But this is making me almost want to flip my like. I don't want to see this. I genuinely don't. No, and that's probably what the mute / block buttons.
Yeah,
for,
and before we get
didn't they eliminate the block thing, or do they still have?
No,
you
can still block. You can still at least mute. I've had to mute some people recently. Just cause, okay. But and real quickly before we get back to the Wembenyama, the Timberwolves main account had the best reaction to like the initial video that's like kind of set off this NBA Brazil Twitter craze, where it's the meme where it's Thanos looking at the phone like in just kind of like utter disbelief and shock. Like they put like the official Timberwolves account posted that back, and that's exactly the face that I had when watching that the first time. And I've seen some other wild stuff from other accounts, NBA Brazil.
Yeah, no, I have to. But the Wolves one just sticks out.
The Wolves one sticks out. Yes. Okay. But anyway, so Wembenyama, give me your reactions to Wembenyama's debuts.
It's so like, at least initially, the first few games there. I mean, you could still see it now, but it's obviously it's not as pertinent as it was. But like, there have been times where like, if you want to have the good, you're going to have the bad with it too. Because it's like there's been times where it looks like you could tell he's at a physical disadvantage. And one of the plays that sticks out to me was there was a play in the first Phoenix game where I don't know if it was off like a kick out or whatever it was, but he attacked on the right wing and he looked like he was trying. I can't remember who was defending him, so my apologies for that. But he looked like he was trying to like go through the guy and create like a better angle for himself on his way to the rim. Was not successful at all. And he just kind of threw up a shot, hit like the side of the backboard, and it was just like, oh geez, like that wasn't an encouraging possession. But the thing that I like about Wemby is his processing. Like he know his feel for the game. You could absolutely see it in that second Phoenix game where he had like 38. I don't remember like the rest of the stat line, but it was just an absurd performance from him, especially without Devin Vassell for half that game.
Yeah.
But like his processing and like whether he's on the roll in the short roll or whether he's flashing to an open area, like he knows like who's surrounding him at any given point. Like a play that stuck out to me in that second Phoenix game where he was coming off a pick and roll. I don't know if it was Trey Jones with the ball handler, but anyways, he was in the short roll. Charles Bassey was like kind of like flashing towards like the strong side block for like a high low. And someone was, I can't remember who, I'm trying to remember. It wasn't Vassell. It might've been Keldon. But someone was on the right, on like the right wing. And he just, as soon as he caught it, he knew he was right. It was so quick. And
Yeah.
it's the stuff that I like to see. Like I'm a sucker for bigs who can pass. Like the Jokic's, the Bams, the Sabonises. Nurkic just flashed a little bit of it. Like bigs who can pass and who can make those reads like that and make them accurately. It's just so much fun to watch because it's so different than like what you see from like the traditional big man, which I guess there's not really many traditional big men anymore because the game has changed.
Yeah.
But and like like the efficiency hasn't been great. I don't know if it's going to be great his rookie year, but like even like defensively, he's been really good. Just again as a rim protector, like he's 7'5". He can cover such a wide range of space with in such little time, with such few steps, because he is Victor Wembanyama and he does have that. Like it was very funny watching OG Anunoby try to shoot a three over him because he purposely tried to arc it really high, and he still got like an entire palm. And it was just like, dude, you weren't going to get this over me. But all of that, just his feel, his IQ on both ends of the floor. Again, he's going to have to build his core strength and his lower body strength over time. That's not new. He's still been a phenomenal player without it. And the thing that has been very nice to see is like even like the biggest skeptics of Wemby, like it's hard to be dismissive of what we've seen the first 6 or 7 games.
And I'm glad you brought up his feel for the game, because this was like a kind of annoying thing leading up to the NBA season where everyone's like, oh, we've seen Wemby before. It's Bol. And that's what like so many people were like pushing that. And
Shaq said.
Yeah. And it's like, no. If Bol was that dude, we would have seen it already.
Right.
If Bol had Wembanyama's feel for the game, then yes, you can say we've seen Wembanyama before. But Wembanyama's feel for the game is leaps and bounds ahead of Bol. Bol, Taco Fall, those were just tall dudes in the NBA that you can play every so often. Wembanyama is 7'4", but has the correct mindset of, you know, what separates, you know, already separating good players from just and I hate to say regular NBA players because they're already like the best in the world, but in comparison to everyone else in the NBA, he's already above a good chunk of the NBA with so much room to grow. And what's interesting to me too is that there's another 7+ foot skinny dude that's playing just as good as Wembanyama right now. I don't know if you've watched a lot of Thunder Ball and you've seen.
I mean, I haven't watched a whole lot lately. But
I've watched like one game and a part of one game. I can't say a whole game, but Chet Holmgren right now is bar for bar with Wembanyama right now. So we may have some sort of budding rivalry there, and I think the rookie of the year race, because we have the precedent that even if you're drafted the year before, if you're injured and you miss the entire season, then you're still technically a rookie. Shout out Ben Simmons.
Wasn't Blake also another one?
He might have been. I can't remember. Ben Simmons is just the one that sticks out.
Yeah.
I don't know why. But no, I 100% agree with you. I love his feel for the game. He's super fun, super exciting to watch. It's just so odd because we've never seen anything like it before, and neither have the NBA players. I can't remember who it was or exactly what they said, but it was someone threw an entry pass into Wembanyama, and he just grabbed it and just like kind of tossed it behind him and threw it in. And it's like it's like there's a timeout, and you see him turn around. His eyes are just really big, and he's just like
you can throw it to him anywhere around the rim. Like that's the thing with him. And like when I talk about the field, it's not just his passing, but like knowing when to slip screens, knowing when to cut. And also it takes two to tango. So you need that chemistry. You could just throw it anywhere within like a 7-mile radius of the rim, and he'll just go up, catch it, and throw it down. Like that's just how skilled he is, and obviously like that again speaks to his length, but the fact that he's able to recognize like, ooh, I'm the second guy setting a staggered screen off the ball. Ooh, there's going to be two to the ball, like if Doug McDermott's coming off the screen, I could just cut. Guess what? That's an open slip. That's an open lob. Or you don't even have to lob it to him. You just throw it high to him, and no one else is going to catch it, or no one else is going to get a hand on it. But yeah, like Durant, there were definitely times during those 2 Phoenix games where Durant's just like, Jesus Christ, dude, like,
and
like this is crazy.
I know, and it's like the pictures that were going around again, the ones that I brought up is like, yes, KD's doing his patent fade, looks beautiful, hits it over Wembenyama because it is, just so unguardable. But then it's like you have Wembenyama going up for a shot, and KD is trying to go contested, and KD just looks so small next to Wembenyama. It's wild to me because again, KD, it's the Slim Reaper. He's the OG, just lanky, pure scorer in the NBA, and to kind of see someone that's somehow taller and lankier than he is, that's going toe to toe with him in a game, is mind blowing. And I'm excited. It's a nationally televised game tomorrow against the Knicks. Absolutely have to tune in to that, and I'm sure the Spurs are very happy. And it's also crazy that the Spurs continue that anytime they suck, they get blessed with generational talent with the number 1 overall pick in a draft.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you go from Tim Duncan to Wembenyama. That's
David Robertson.
David Robinson.
David
exactly,
Robertson.
too. Yeah.
David
Robinson.
I said David Robertson. No, David Robinson.
Yeah.
Tim Duncan.
It's okay. I misspoke on the Big O's name in the Celtics documentary, and I didn't catch it, and some dude flamed me for it in the comments section. And I was like, well, come on, man, give me a break. Yeah. Oh well. The video's doing really well, and I'm in the process of making more of those. So hopefully we can get those out on the YouTube soon. But that about does it for me, Matt. Do you have any closing comments about anything we've talked about tonight, more on Wembenyama, or you just got something you want to spend like 2 minutes to vent about?
I mean, there's just one thing that I do want to mention that I haven't mentioned yet. Is Boston the best team in the league?
They might be, man. They might be.
Is Boston or Denver, like, are we looking at like, again, 7 games into a season, Boston and Denver look like 2 really good teams that we're probably going to get shit on from Garrett and Trey for not mentioning as like the teams that surprised us. But then again, like,
I was expecting them
we expected them to be good.
Yeah, I was expecting.
They look really good, dude. Like, again, listen, regular season, fine. I want to see, at least from Boston's perspective, it feels like they're the favorites to make or win the fucking finals every year, excuse my language, and they just can never get past the Eastern Conference Finals, with the exception of 1 year and one Jimmy missed 3-pointer with 30 seconds left in a Game 7. I want to see it in the playoffs with them. They have a good team. They have a very good top 6, but that's just regular season. They look really good.
They do. And, of course, health concerns with Porzingis also. That has to be brought up.
Yeah.
Can he be healthy? That's kind of been Boston's Achilles heel forever. Robert Williams, Time Lord, in a timely manner, again, is probably going to have surgery and is going to be done for.
Yeah, he's going to be out for the year.
Yeah, that's sad. I hate that because I do like Time Lord. He just can't stay healthy. But all right, I think that's going to do it for us here for today's return of Court is in Session. Matt, it's always fun to talk hoops with you, man. Can't wait to have you back more on the show. Make sure everyone, if you're watching, to go follow Matt on Twitter. Link down in the description. I will have his author page at Vendetta. He does a lot for us here at Vendetta. He has a lot of hats that he wears, and he does a whole lot,
including this one,
including that one. Yes. But we are super appreciative. I'm super appreciative of everything that Matt does here for us at Vendetta. So again, check out his stuff down below. Links in the description. And while you're down there, you're also going to see a button that looks kind of like this. You know what that is? That's the like button. Go ahead and hit the like button and hit the subscribe button next to it, and then hit the notification bell so you can be notified whenever new podcast episodes of this podcast. We have a soccer podcast called Football. It's pretty hilarious. We've also got a weekly betting show, Hard Knocks. I do a weekly betting blog. Go check that out. We didn't get to do it this past week because I got cheesed by WordPress.
I mean, by the way, you guys are kicking my ass against the spread. Like y'all are like 5-10 games up. I'm here fighting for 500.
Dude, this is the best year I've ever had in doing these picks or just like privately betting. This is the best year I've ever had. I'm sometimes upset that I don't bet more money than I do because I'd be up a lot of units right now.
Yeah.
But then, I've always viewed it as like a treasure that I guide others to that I cannot possess. That's kind of like me with betting because I'm so much of a pansy when it comes to betting money. I don't want to bet a whole lot of money.
Me too. I mean, I don't bet. I mean, I think the quantity, the amount of stuff that I do bet sometimes is a lot, but not like the amount of money.
No, I'm betting 5-10 at the most. If I put a $20 bet on something, I'm shaking in my boots that it hits.
I'm worse than that. I'm betting like $2, $3, $4. Like that's. I remember I had this discussion with Trey, and he's just like, "What? Like, why are you?" Dude, he's like, "I'd throw like 10, 100, like on shit." And I'm just like, "I cannot."
No, I can't.
I'm a poor's boy. Like,
yeah, maybe if I was,
I'm a cheapo.
Yeah,
I'm a cheapo.
I'm definitely a cheapo. Like, so just real quick tangent to start the year. I hit in the NFL season Amon-Ra St. Brown anytime touchdown and Lions money line against the Chiefs. Biggest bet I ever won, cashed it out instantly, and I mean, obviously small bets here and there, but dude, I was freaking out.
You were in house money for a while.
Yes, and it was great. But all right, anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm Jackson Law. That's the Diamond himself, Matt Hannafin. We will see you guys next time.